The best voices are patient advocates.
I work a lot with the Lupus Foundation of America, and I think what we want to do is have patients advocate for themselves. The stories I hear is that a person who eventually is diagnosed with lupus will have seen several physicians and sort of not necessarily not taken seriously, but they've tried to put this together as something else. But when you have a constellation, I like to say when you have a constellation of symptoms that don't seem to make sense and aren't easy to put together, you should think about an autoimmune disease.
I think it's so important. I mean, it's a dialogue. I think we doctors have to learn from the patient perspective, and it is also our role to provide feedback, to explain, for instance, difference between disease activity and damage, because this is absolutely not treated in the same manner. So I think the role of this collaboration is so important. And you touched this before, of course, is the role of patient associations.
This is particularly important also in Europe, where the patient voice is very strongly heard within the so within EULAR, since we have our vice president is a patient actually. Yeah, it's very important. So it's actually every progress needs two pillars. So the physician pillar and the patient pillar. I think it's equally important. And this is actually
the empower of patients, the association of patients are or help a lot in the evolving field of lupus. So if we don't go all together, hand by hand, it's something that it's quite difficult to make impact on. And in Latin America, we have a big issue with that. There are different associations, but we need to learn more, to work with them in a way to make their voice be expressed as loud as possible.
Yeah, so we have a lupus community advisory board that one of our partners, Rachel Bergman, she's a PhD epidemiologist who does a lot of outreach with our lupus community, and she's developed a board to provide thoughts on how lupus care has gone and sort of what people want to see, especially like in research studies. Like, how do we design research studies that kind of meet the patients where they are? How do we bring research into communities that haven't traditionally participated in research? So she's been very amazing in sort of bringing that patient voice to sort of what we're doing. That's also just a really helpful role that patients can provide is being a peer.
There are now recommendations for the involvement of patients in research.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be very straightforward. We're talking about patients. We're talking about patient-centered research. For instance, we are building with Lupus Europe an instrument to check for patient vulnerabilities.
It's been very eye-opening for our investigators, the people who are studying lupus, to hear about lupus firsthand, but also to understand that what we think is the most important thing in a test tube is not necessarily the most important thing to a patient who's...
Well, we try to work together with the patients in several different organizations. There is a strong patient organization in the Netherlands for general rheumatology patients, but there's also one very specifically for those who suffer from lupus or one of the other systemic autoimmune diseases in rheumatology. And they do very good work in bringing together the patients with experts, be it medical or in other aspects of life where you could use the help.
By the titling, we provided many educational ones and also advocacy for the patients.
And there are new initiatives starting at the level of the advocacy also, and where of course one has to always make sure to remind people that there is that disease and that many people are suffering from it.
We are already trying to connect with enough patients to do proper research because that's the only way that we will get good data on outcomes and potentially to translate this data.
I hope that everything we do has a patient voice on it. We've done several focus groups where we specifically are bringing lupus patients in and asking them their opinion on things like clinical trials. So now we have clinical trials that are very different from the trials we did decades ago.
In order to develop patient empowerment, you have to actually educate your patients. So this comes both from a structured interview and giving time to your patient to discuss what he or she, what matters most for them in their daily life, but also via their participation to patient organizations.
the patients actually start raising money to support research, in addition to being involved in generating questions, right? So that's amazing. And then advocacy, oh my God, that's so important, because all these drugs that are available, they're great, but the payers don't pay for them, you know, and so we need to educate government that these drugs are, the experts are saying this is what we should be doing, and you're telling us we can't do them, you know, even though the drugs are there, you know. And I know I've been with patient groups in Ontario that have gone to the Ontario legislature, and we've made presentations, and I think the fact that it's the patient who makes it, and then the physician just kind of backs it up, but the patient makes the argument, I think that's very helpful.
For many of my patients, whenever they're first diagnosed with lupus, they go home and they read on the internet all the things about lupus, which is a scary thing to do. Please don't do that.
The people who do the best are the people who know about their disease, know more about their disease. We're facing now a new problem of misinformation. The web out there is not controlled. The information that appears up there is not proven, is not documented, and I think this danger is going to increase more and more and more.
The other thing it does is that almost makes patients go through a grief process, because they're grieving the way their life used to be. And so for many of our patients, we work with them through the stages of the grieving process, and for their family members as well, so that they understand this is not like strep throat. You get it, you take your antibiotics, and it's over. That this is a lifelong fight, and we have a lot of warriors who are lupus patients.
I think that the biggest problem is that when we see a man with lupus-like syndrome or symptoms, we automatically exclude the diagnosis of lupus because it's a man. And sometimes there's this discussion with colleagues, we have a man and yeah, but probably it's not lupus because he is a man. But as we know, men also suffer from lupus and from aggressive forms of lupus. So it's very important to acknowledge that SLE is not a female disease, but a disease that is predominant in female patients, because it is very important to think about this.
So I think one of the things that we're seeing that are helping us to diagnose patients is there's becoming better awareness, I think, amongst even the primary care communities about what is lupus.
We're going to have people coming to the doctor with lots of misinformation, and the doctor or the nurses will have to spend a lot of time to misspell those misconceptions. So there's a lot to be done. The other thing that is important is we definitely need more money in research, right? And yes, the United States is doing well in supporting lupus research. Yes, there are foundations like the Alliance for Lupus Research. I mean, with Lupus Foundation of America, I was involved for the first time 1990, and I hope your math is not good. And I was for 10 years editing Lupus News for them. And the purpose of that was to simplify the stories that were coming out from research laboratories or other research efforts and deliver it to people. And that was important. More of that needs to be done. More of that. And that information should be through the World Association of Lupus, be immediately transferred to everybody, right? I mean, these barriers again, these are unexcusable. And I know they're going to get worse, but they're inexcusable.